For me, it was a great honour to be invited to write a new piece for the opening of the Boulez Centenary. It has been an absolutely wonderful experience working with the ensemble. I have the impression that they deeply care about every note and every sound in the piece, and this attention to detail is really something very special with this ensemble. And not only for the music itself, but also for the theme around the music. I spoke with the ensemble about what lies behind the piece, and then several of the ensemble have spoken to me after the rehearsal about that and are interested in the theme and have questions, you know, about Diane and the book. The title, Nothing Ever Truly Ends, is the very last line of a book called American Mother by the writer Colin McCann. He co-wrote the book with Diane Foley. Diane's son James was kidnapped and tortured and eventually murdered by the Islamic State. Diane made the incredible, courageous decision to meet with one of her son's killers when he was in captivity in the US. And at the very end of these meetings, she extended her hand in a gesture of forgiveness, and he took her hand, he received it. And she said, something good once begun never truly ends. And this was the last line of the book and where the idea for the title came from. For me, it began at music college when, in my second year, we had to do some arrangement, and on this occasion it was arranging Bartók's music. And this really struck me very strongly, and I enjoyed doing it so much. I started to compose other pieces, and the next year changed course to focus on composition. I studied for my master's at the Royal College of Music with Mark Anthony Turnage. And his music was before that and remained very important to me. And also Oliver Nussin is one of the most important composers to me, I would say, who also became a mentor. I still try and listen to as much variety as I can find and get my hands on, and really enjoy listening to, you know, all the new music you can hear, because even if it's from a very different stylistic standpoint, I think you can gain many things as a composer from different styles. Important to me when I'm composing is to really think about all the different elements. I don't think I would ever have a piece that totally neglects melody or harmonic movement, harmonic progression, or has some elements of rhythmic drive in it. So I think combining these things is really integral to me as a composer. I try to explore every new piece in a fresh way. In the piece I've written for Ensemble Intercontemporain, I've used several instruments that I haven't composed for a lot before, like the alto flute and the cymbalom, and how these then interact with the ensemble and how they begin to form the language of the piece. That's what inspires me in the process of composing the piece. How do you approach each instrument and how they fit into the kind of palette of the piece? So I would equally like to write another piece for exactly these instruments and explore them in a very different way. That's what I really find fascinating in the process of writing. So I think it could be endless how many pieces you would write for the same ensemble. When I was writing the piece, I thought a lot about Mr. Boulez, and especially about the extraordinary workshop I had with him in 2009 on a piece. During the workshop, he suggested that we take the music apart and hear it at different tempi, and was then posing the question, basically, what would happen if the music was much slower, and then therefore what would happen around it. This approach of thinking about the material you have created in a piece has really impacted me in the years since. So I especially wanted to explore it in a very specific way for this piece, to come back to it and take a very slow tempo and think, and then what is happening around the material, and what do you have that's constant and what do you have that's fleeting in a way, what disappears and what remains. The piece itself is around 10 minutes in duration, and it was formed through the idea of having a kind of ritual that comes back at several points in the piece. The idea of ritual came from a kind of religious standpoint, to explore forgiveness in a way. I think in the story of American Mother, you really understand how Diane found forgiveness. The principal way is through her strong Catholic faith. That related back to the ideas of how one can explore that musically. I started to build up a kind of palette of using gongs, tuned gongs, and the singing bowl, which is also from the Buddhist religion. And these instruments combined together have a very kind of antique feel to them, something endless, something eternal somehow. And that was the idea of the ritual. That's how I built up the material. There's actually a very short kind of phrase which is made up of tuned percussion and tam-tam and very, very quiet, sustained instruments. This recurs 7 times actually during the piece, and between each, then the music moves on a kind of journey through different episodes in a way, and each grow to a certain point, 2/3 of the way through the piece. It grows to the real high point of the piece, and then there's a section which is kind of lighter and as if the energy is dispersed up, almost like birds flying from the music. And then the very end actually recapitulates from the beginning. So the first section comes back at the very end in the exact form actually, but it feels very different. It feels like you've been on that journey, and then when it comes back, I have the feeling, is it the same or is it now altered because we've been on that journey through the piece?